Yeah. See, this works on my computer, but it doesn't work on the old one that we've got upstairs. I don't know if that's the problem. Oops, and this one just fine.
Oh, because the computer upstairs is older.
You cannot, yeah, it's a 2009. It still runs great. You just can't upgrade it anymore.
Right. So that's the issue with all of our dang Apple products is they become outdated on purpose. Force us into purchases.
It's the world system.
No.
Just want to keep doing that.
Yeah. Peggy's now with us today. She's our daughter and grandkids have been with us for a couple of days, and they're heading home today. So she's getting her last few minutes in with our grandson, almost 2 months old now, and smiling like crazy. You can get him going, and he's just smiling and wiggling all over. So. Okay, I do not remember where I left off the other day in the book. I thought I finished 7. Okay, thank you. 7. I thought I'd marked it and I did not. So, okay. I'm going to share the screen here for a minute because I want to go back and review our prepositions. And so I'm going to have the two of you go through and give me the definitions on the prepositions. And I think maybe instead of going back and forth, I'm going to give you a set since there's 3 sets. Okay. The thing is don't look at the definition. See if you can remember the definition just by looking. So if you have to hold your hand over the definition, that would be great. Okay. So Joe, you want to start?
Sure.
Okay, see how you do with the first set of prepositions we have there.
Okay, so ava.
No, remember that's a N sound.
Oh, right. I'm sorry. I gotta wake up. Anna. So that's in the accusative single case only. So I would say that's something like before or something like that.
It means up.
Or no, Anna. I can't remember. So
yeah, it means up.
Up. Okay.
Or among or between. Okay.
Auntie would be in a pose of, so genitive. So that would be like instead of or opposite of.
Yep. Very good.
Oppo in the ablative would be probably prior to or before.
No, it means from or away from.
Okay, I'm just trying to think. Okay.
That's all right.
Ice would be into an accusative. Ek is in the ablative, that would be out from.
Out from, yeah.
Pro, that would be before, ablative.
Yes.
And soon is probably, it could be locative, also with or instrumental with.
Okay. Yes. Okay. I was trying to think of some examples of Anna and Oppo to help us remember those two in terms of among or above, or excuse me, up or among, and Oppo from or away. Because I think of the words.
You know, I said Ava. I was thinking of a bird. That's why I said I was thinking bird, right? And I thought,
yeah,
so like a wing. Ava is a wing, you know.
As far as Anna is concerned, and this is not an English word that you would know, but Anna ganao, we haven't learned ganao, but ganao means to birth or to conceive or to produce. And Anna ganao is one of the words for regeneration. So up again, so like to generate again, up again. The way, and that's over in 1 Peter 1.3 is where you find that, form that word. And oppo is trying to think of oppo in English. We have approbation and approbate. But my problem is I cannot off the top of my head think what the main verb is that's based off of. So that's one of the things that's helpful. I need to do that. I think to me, that's one of the things that was helpful in learning not only prepositions, but a lot of vocabularies to tie it to English vocabulary that derives from Greek. It might be helpful for you. I should have brought a copy of it down. It might be helpful to get for yourselves a copy of Lexical Aids for Students of the Greek, Lexical Aids for Students of the Greek New Testament by Bruce Metzger. And it's a small paperback book, and it has to do with building vocabulary, and it has vocabulary words starting in the beginning based on occurrence. So they're grouped by words that occur over 500 times and so on and so forth.
Would you repeat that again? Lexical aids?
Aids for Students of the Greek New Testament. And one of the things that Metzger does throughout that when he's giving you the vocabulary is if there is an appropriate English word that we have that he thinks would be helpful in remembering that word, he will put it in parentheses behind there. And
is that M-E-T-Z-G-E-R? Bruce Metzger?
Z-E-G-R, yeah, Metzger. Yeah.
Metzger.
M-E-T-Z-G-E-R, yeah, I didn't say it first name. Might even be able to find a Kindle edition of it. I don't know. But it's still, in my opinion, a very helpful book. Okay, so Robin gets the second set here.
Okay, I'm going to do my very best to not. Dia, your viaduct example has really helped me with this, but it only helps in the genitive because it's true. And in the accusative, I cheated because of. I don't know if that makes sense. But.
And maybe a thing that's helpful in connecting those two ideas, because I even think when we change cases, there's part of a base idea that's involved. So if you accomplish something through something, when you move into the accusative and you're looking at the object of something that's done, now you're not looking at how it gets done. Now you're looking at why it got done. So because of that means, that avenue or channel or agent through which it was accomplished. Okay. So in other words, I was able to get to this, won't make any sense to Joe, but for us to travel north, we go over Interstate 90 and we go over a viaduct, which we get via from translation or a transliteration of dia. We go over that, so I could say I'm able to easily get to Ephrata because of the viaduct over 90. As I don't have to drive a long ways one way or the other to get up there. So maybe that'll help. Maybe that doesn't.
No, that's helpful. N in the locative is in. And instrumental. Yeah, by means of. That's what I was going to say. I mean, that's what instrumental means anyway. Okay. Kata. Genitive, down upon or against, accusative, along or according to. Okay. Meta in the genitive is with. Accusative. Yeah, I don't know. After.
And there's some interesting passages where the after is significant with the meta, understanding that difference. As far as meta, and we use meta in English. If you talk about metamorphosis, you're talking about changing the form from one thing to another. So that would be kind of the after one change to another. But Josh Butler, I don't know if Joe was able to see this, but we put up on Facebook in the afternoon, Josh Butler was leading a review of some things we went over in the morning, and he was talking about what you call the meta-narrative. That's the narrative that kind of encompasses, or it's with all of this, that kind of creates a framework that everything else sits within. So we have meta is a word that definitely comes across into English.
So peri, the genitive, about, and the accusative, around, which makes sense to me. I don't know why.
Because we think of perimeter, something that goes around the outside of something.
Oh, that's a good one. Perimeter.
Hooper. So hooper and hoopo, I remember. So hooper, love, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think of the, but you gave the hyper and the hypo,
Right.
whatever. But I think of a basketball hoop. It's above me.
Okay.
The hoop hair. That's in what? So that's the accusative. So genitive. In behalf, like on behalf of.
We could switch it to on behalf of, if that's helpful. Yeah.
Sounds weird. In behalf of. So in place of is what it means.
Right. So it has the idea of substitution.
Okay. And then hupo is under. 5.
And one of the things that's helpful with both of those is when both those words come over into English, we don't translate the upsilons as a U.
Right.
They're represented by a Y.
Right.
And they both have a rough breathing mark. So we say hyper and hypo. So hyper, we understand that. Over and above. Hypo, a hypodermic needle, something goes under the skin.
So is that the way we should be saying those words with the Y sound instead of the U sound?
There are people that do, but the U sound probably is just a regular U sound at that time. Yeah. Okay, and then we have 3 more there. We have epi, which is upon. In the accusative, it has the idea of over or across. There's motion. Frequently, accusative has some sense of motion involved. Para is alongside. That's an easy one. Well, I always think epi, upon. So that one is an idea. Para, we get parallel from that. So to be alongside, parallel to, alongside. So with, in the sense of being beside or belong. And then pros is for the sake of, in the genitive, in the at or on or near, something very similar in the locative. In the accusative, it's toward. Again, you're looking kind of somewhat the idea of motion in one sense or another. And then I added the additional vocabulary from the workbook that I forgot to get added the other day. Hama, which is technically an adverb, which means together with. Apathnesko, I died. Zao, I live. Diabolos, ha diabolos. Diabolos is devil or slanderer. And I think it's important to add slanderer there because we have a couple places in the New Testament where diabolos is used not of the devil himself, but of others that slander. Didaskalos, ha didaskalos, a teacher. Exo, that which is outside. Ha Jesus is Jesus. I also added Joshua because there's a couple times in the New Testament Joshua is being mentioned. It's the same name. We just have come to pronounce it Jesus rather than Yeshua, which is what the Hebrew would have said, but it's exactly the same name. Poiao, I do or I make. Sabbatan, sabbatan is a Sabbath. Cessation, and hoste is so or so that. Okay.
Tim, I have a question.
Please.
Okay, just because of how the week before when we were talking about ice or epi, excuse me, are these, where it says 1 case, 2 case, 3 case, are these locked in like that? I mean, can they only be like the 1 cases are only definitely 1 case? That's the rule? Because I remember you said soon when I was listening to that, that had a locative possibility of with as well. And then, so my question is, because I know our job is to translate what the writer intended to communicate. And so the way we translate prepositions could change that in a way. So we have to be very careful about that. So if it's by the rule, meaning in this case, epi, it's only genitive, locative, or accusative. There's no way it can have an instrumental use of it at all.
I just checked the book because when I did this, I just took the material from the book and put it up here for the vocabulary words, and didn't make a lot of changes with the cases. And I think I disagree with him as regard to the instrumental. I don't think the instrumental is what the soon is used with. I think I would say locative. So that's a mistake, and I didn't pick that up the other day. I'm glad you pointed that out.
Okay. And
So,
so
if you were to give me a
so-
soon Greek text, I would almost always think of it in terms of its location.
okay. So that could be an error there, meaning on your opinion, which is a strong opinion, and I
Right.
believe that.
But I would say generally for most of these, though, the test of translators working on this over many years, I think most of these are going to stick pretty well and pretty clear. And if you kind of use the definition of that preposition and the case that it's with, if you use that as your working definition, and you may have to tweak it a little bit, I think you'll find out that it'll fit. And if it doesn't seem to fit, my understanding is sometimes there's tweaking in the way you're translating, but sometimes it's maybe my understanding of the verse or the sentence that I'm translating isn't accurate, and there's something I'm missing. And if I would get the rest of it straight, then I would see why my translation here doesn't work.
Because I see that more prevalent when you're using a lid case, right?
Yeah. And let's put it this way: almost all modern Greek or grammars for Greek, biblical Greek are they just have a dative, and they have a dative with a locative sense and a dative with an instrumental sense. They don't actually break it into completely separate cases. They just treat it as all dative.
Dative, right. I saw that.
But
so would you be able to say then, based on that, for the preposition epi, there is no instrumental use of that ever, or what? I hate to say ever.
I'm not for sure in looking at it that we do have an instrumental sense. I would have to go through and look at all the occurrences of epi in the New Testament. And I don't know how many there are, but probably take quite a while.
Because that made sense to think of it not just literally, like locative, literally, but also on a metaphorically. It made sense.
Right. Oh yeah, we were talking. See, you're jogging my memory. I was slow. I knew we talked about this, but that was the conversation after class. Texting back and forth. Yeah, epi with a metaphorical sense of something resting on. Which, if you think about that, when we have some examples of faith, and it says our faith is upon, or to believe. Actually, I think it's the verb believe upon. Technically, that's a metaphorical sense location, but it's a metaphorical location because your faith is always where you're actually believing in a promise or believing in a person, but you're literally not taking faith and dropping it on top of that person out there, because faith is a attitude.
Right. So, I just have to, when you said metaphorical there, that's what made it click for me at that point. Yes, that makes sense. Right. Then that rule would apply, for sure. And I just try not to break any rules, in the Greek translation of the way they use prepositions. If like you say, soon is, in what you understand for all your experiences, only locative, then instrumental would be incorrect there.
Yeah, and what'll happen is if you finish studying Greek at this level and you move on to intermediate grammar, they're going to take these prepositions and they'll have a section in there. Well, they'll break these prepositions out, and they will give you like 5 or 6 different types of scenarios for one preposition, in which it might be translated this, might be translated this, might be translated this, like that. And it's you can see that when you start looking at intermediate grammars, and they give more attention to, shall we say, the nuances of these when you're actually in doing more syntax.
Right. So we have to remember that these definitions they're giving us is like, it's the idea of explicitly.
Right. Yeah. These are for translation purposes. These are only working definitions that you're going to have to tweak.
Because I could see this also applying, you know, when I'm talking about sticking to the rule, literally or metaphorically. It could apply also to conjunctions, you know.
I grew up, I took Greek and we kind of did it really hard line, old school. So whenever we had like an N in an instrumental case, always we translate it by means of. So I rake or I clean up the yard by means of a rake. But we don't say that in English. We'd say, I clean the yard with a rake. And almost all modern English readers get that. They're not saying I'm an accompaniment of a rake or I'm sitting beside a rake or something like that. They're talking about an instrument I'm using to do that. And so I've kind of, there's places where I think I use by means of because I'm afraid somebody might take it a wrong way today. But if with works, if there's not a way of accidentally mistaking that. So example, and I mentioned this, I think we went through this, I don't know if it was last time or 2 times ago, Ephesians 5:18, it says be filled by means of the Spirit. And I translate that by means of the Spirit, because if you say with the Spirit, a lot of people think I'm getting the Spirit in some way, or I'm getting more of the Spirit or whatever it is. So that's a place where I avoid with. But if with is without any problem is going to communicate the idea, I'd go with rather than by means of, just because it's easier English for most people.
Sure.
Okay. Any other questions on any of the vocabulary? I don't know if either of you had a chance to look at that chart. I still think that chart that's included in there is helpful in the textbook and kind of looking at the relationship of the different words. And it doesn't cover everything because some of the metaphorical uses of the words are the prepositions that are not so physically oriented don't fit in that. But there's quite a few of them that give you a good idea. Okay, so back down to our sentences. Oh, I know what I have to do. I was using the textbook here for this. So I gotta open that. There we go. And we left off at 7, so we're down here under number 8. This is our sentence we're working on. Oh, I need to do this. Okay. Stop. Oh, I am so sorry. There we go. Okay, so number 8 there. We'll start with Joe today. If you want to read the Greek for us and then go back and translate.
Sure. Tous methetas ha adelphos, pempai ek ton oikon kai eis ten ecclesian. I translate it as the brother sends the disciples out of the houses and into the church.
Okay.
Is methetas genitive singular feminine, ablative singular feminine, accusative plural feminine, or accusative plural masculine? And it's accusative plural masculine. How can I be sure? Well, the definite article preceding is the first declension plural and plural masculine, or the second declension, excuse me. No. Yes. And then methetas is in the accusative plural, right?
Masculine definite article for the accusative plural.
Masculine definite article, right.
Okay, go on.
And then methetas is in the is accusative plural in the first declension.
Okay.
So methetas is the masculine noun, right? So parse pempai. It's a verb. The stem is pemp. Subject is brother. Present tense, active, indicative, mood. Third person, singular number, and lexical form is pempo. Does ek express description or separation? It's separation for me because it's ablative use and emphasis.
Yes. Okay, good.
Agreed.
Okay.
So number 9, Hakurias legai parabolen en lagois agapes. The Lord is speaking a parable with words of love. What elements identify kurios as the subject of legai, the case, and the definite article has definite. Is logos dative, locative, or instrumental? I said instrumental. How can you be sure? It makes sense.
And I translated it in, and I thought by means of, with, this is a place where with words of love, I think everybody would understand that. That's a good example of using with. Okay, I'll go over number 10. Uk ep artomano zesetai ha anthropos. And on all of these, the way I translate, because I do this both when I normally translate, is I translate it quite literally across there, which won't make sense in English necessarily, and then I go back and translate it into English. So I have not on bread alone lives the man, or we'd have to say in English, man does not live on bread only or alone.
So I said will not live,
Sure.
which is the same thing, but it
Yeah. Because
does not live.
because what we have here in Sao is we have a future, yes. So and that's, and well, you don't need to know that right now, but that little sigma in the middle of there is the marker that tells you that this is a secondary tense. And in this case, there's nothing else that tells you it's not aorist, so it's that secondary tense, so that sigma is future. It's a future mark. Okay, explain the spelling of epi in this sentence. Epi has undergone elision of the final iota because the following noun, arto, begins with a vowel with a smooth breathing. Note that this sentence is not arranged like a typical English sentence. So explain this common Greek phenomena, and that is that the emphasis, because Greek's syntax is based on word form, not on word order, and word order allows us to make an emphasis. So the emphasis is here is not on bread alone. That's what he's trying to start off with, not on bread alone. And then parse ze septai, and they already went through this with this verb ze, subject xanthropos. It's future, it's middle, which we also haven't learned the middle yet, but indicative, third singular, and zao. Okay, number 11, Joe.
Okay. Oi pistoi prophetai agusin tus decaius mathetas to curio pros ta hieron. The faithful prophets lead the righteous disciples of the Lord to the temple.
Okay.
Is pistoi in attributive, predicative, or substantive use in the sentence? It's attributive. What is significance of the use? Well, it's attributing the quality of faithful to the noun prophets. So, how can you be sure that mathetas is masculine in gender? First declension in accusative plural case.
And it also has a definite article out in front of
Right.
decaius.
Right.
Decaius is the adjective modifying it, but the article tus goes with mathetas.
Right.
So I want to go back.
Okay.
Finish it up
Right.
and go back and do this.
Okay. What case is to curio in? And I put in genitive singular, masculine. Does tu kurio express description or separation? It's a description.
Because it's saying that they're the disciples that belong to the Lord. Okay, go back up to the first three words, oi pistoi prophetai.
Uh-huh.
Why is pistoi, if that's an adjective, why does its ending differ from the ending on prophetai?
It's because it's an feminine ending. It's in a different declension, or it's an adjective in the plural. Well, it's a plural, right? They're both plural.
It is.
So,
okay, let's start with prophet. What declension is prophetai, first or second?
it's in the second declension, right?
No, it's first.
No, first declension. I'm sorry.
Because it has the A
Right.
sound ending.
It's the first declension, and pistoi is in the second declension, right?
Actually, the difference is not the declension. The difference is what is the gender for prophetai?
Oh, right. I get those two mixed up. It's the gender for it's in masculine.
Masculine. So notice the definite article has to be masculine.
Masculine, correct. Right.
Also, the ending on your adjective has to be masculine.
Masculine.
I kind of thought maybe he'd ask a question on that, but he didn't. So I thought that would be okay. Good. 12.
Anthropos lagai agathon lagon to mathete kai agai tus huius eiston oikon. Holy word. The man is speaking or saying a good word to the disciple and leading the son into the house. And he leads the son. Is this sentence a compound or complex sentence? Explain. It's compound. It has two clauses joined together with a conjunction. Other speech is kai. It's a conjunction. How is kai used? To connect the two clauses. How do you determine the meaning of ice in this sentence, since there are three possible meanings? Okay, so I said ice was into the house. Well, it made the most sense, was why I determined that, because we're looking at ton oikon. Well, and also it has to be, right? Who's accusative?
Mm-hmm.
So what they're saying, why did I differentiate from into or to or in? Why did I emphasize into?
Right.
I like that best.
Well, and the other idea, when we're looking at ice here, when we're saying into, is that the verb is saying that he's doing what?
Leading.
Leading. And so when you're talking about leading, you don't say, it's not like he's leading him around inside the house.
Sure.
So it has the idea of motion. So tends to have that idea. It doesn't always, but so leads the disciples into the house. Yeah. So that makes more sense.
Why does ice not have an accent?
Okay. Which means that its accent is drawn from
the following word.
Right. Okay. I'm not going to do any more of these. I want you two to keep working on this. So number 13, Joe.
Okay. Hoste kurios estin ha huios tu anthropou kai tu sabatu. And it's so that the Son of Man. Well, first when I did, I put so that, and Lord is the Son of Man, even of the Sabbath. And so I put it together, so that the Son of Man is Lord even of the Sabbath. and it says, note the adverb hoste in this sentence, okay? I note it, all right? I don't know, is there anything else to note besides that it's an adverb?
They're just pointing, they just want you to pay attention to how that's being used here because it's vocabulary they added in the workbook rather than in the textbook.
And also note that it says so as the adverb, but there I put the that there because I read the verse before that and they were doing an explanation, and so that made sense,
Right.
you know, to me. Esteem is a present active indicative third singular form of the verb eimi. Esteem is an enclitic, which means that it attaches itself to the preceding word. With the result, it loses its accent under certain conditions. What is the subject of esteem in this sentence? Son. How can you be sure? Well, kurios is in a nominative case, so that's the subject. It's the complement that completes the meaning of the subject, the son.
And there's one other thing that tells you that son is the subject.
It has the definite article.
Okay. So this is a predicate nominative situation where you have son and Lord. They're both nominatives.
Right.
The definite article acts as the subject. Yes.
Correct. What does to anthropo describe? It describes the sun. And what about to sabatun? Also describes the sun.
No.
No?
Nope.
Or describes the Lord?
Describes Lord. Yeah.
Right, Lord, right. I had to read that again. Right.
This is
Describes the Lord.
Lord, even of the Sabbath.
Even of the Sabbath, right?
Yep.
Okay. Lambanamin kalan karton upon anti kaku parpu. We receive good fruit, bad fruit.
Okay.
How can you be sure of the use of kalan and kaku since there is no definite article present with these adjectives? I said that they are in the same form as the nouns they're modifying, so we know that they're modifying those nouns.
Same case form. Yep.
Does anti express description or separation? Explain. I said description because it's a genitive preposition.
This is one of those places where I was inclined to think that this is one that you could take as an ablative sense, and that it separates, that you're making a deception, a separation, separating good from bad. So a case maybe could be made for that. But yours was going with the book, which is good. So,
But I
Right.
thought, oh, Tim.
there you did. That's fine. Okay, Joe.
Okay. Apo to Hiron or Hiru, dia tu oiku, prostain ecclesian o anthropos agai tus vios. So when I put this together, it says from or away from the temple through the house toward the church, the man is leading the sons. So I put the man is leading the sons from the temple through the house toward the church.
Okay.
All right. List the prepositions and the cases in which they are used in the sentence. Apo an ablative, dia and genitive, and pros an accusative. Look at ecclesian. It's a noun in accusative case. Singular number. Function in this sentence is the object of the verb. It's a feminine. Lexical form is,
Just a minute here. I just want to make sure. Technically, it's the object of the preposition,
oh, the preposition? Okay.
because the object of the verb is, go back and look at your sentence and see what the object of the verb
Hold
is.
on.
Yep.
Okay, this is, let's see.
Are you raising your hand?
No.
Oh, okay.
The object of the verb would be the sons, right?
Sons, yeah. So that's the object of the verb.
Right. That's the object of the direct object, right? Right.
So we say it's the object of the preposition.
Preposition. Okay.
That's correct.
First declension, lexical form ecclesia.
Okay.
In what case is weos? I put accusative. There's that same answer what we just talked about. It's the object, direct object of the verb. What's the significance of this case?
Okay.
Okay. Ha poion te hamartian ectu diabolu estin. The one practicing the sin. Poion is a nominative singular masculine present active participle that is substantive in use.
Remember, substantive in use is you're using it as the noun.
Do
Okay.
I actually have to remember?
Well, eventually that'll be helpful. So,
How can you be sure that hamartian is accusative singular feminine? I said case ending and article.
very good.
What does the definite
What did you say? I didn't hear.
case ending and definite article?
Okay.
What does the definite article to reveal about the noun diabolu? Reveal about the noun. Belonging and ownership is what I said. It's the genitive case, so it reveals that. Yeah, I don't know. I didn't know how to
Okay.
answer this question.
Okay. Number one, it's not genitive case.
What?
It's ablative because it's out of the devil, source, ablative is source. I would say the definite article, what it's doing is it's saying it's talking about specificity. So it's not just any slander, but it's the one,
The one.
yeah, which is a big deal in 1 John 3, where he's drawn a distinction between the Antichrist teachers and the believers.
Okay.
So what's the answer for that? What is it that
So
definite article reveal?
Talking about the specific slander, not just any slander, but a specific slander, the one. Okay, that.
The.
So in other words, the devil. As I said, you're going to have a few places where you have diabolos used of other people that might slander or acts of slandering in a verbal form. But so this is saying the devil.
So I didn't check 1 John 3. Did they translate it, the one practicing the sin? Because it's awkward English, but that is what it says.
Yeah, and I wrestle with this verse because this one and verse 4 of that chapter have sin with the definite article. And my experience going through all the epistles, I don't remember if it's like this in the Gospels. Every time you have the word hamartian in the singular and it has a definite article with it, it's always a reference to the sin nature, or what we would call the sin nature. They didn't do it. They just called it the sin, and they understood it as a principle. And an example of that is over in Romans 7, where he says it's the sin, the one dwelling in me. And there's a double, I think I tried to find that the other day, and I didn't find it. I should have looked it up for today. But there's a double preposition in there, one with the verb attached to the verb, and then one standing by itself. And Paul says that same phrase twice one with the preposition once and one with the preposition twice, to lay hold of the fact that there's sin that dwells in us. And obviously then he's not talking about an act, he's talking about what we would call a principle of sin, or for lack of a better term, sin nature. There's a lot of people that really are opposed to the use of the word sin nature. I just don't know how else to say it.
Well, so like we did a study of First John, I don't know, 2 years ago or something, and when we're talking about this portion where it says practicing, he's making the point that it's not like you sinned one time,
Right.
because y'all sinned many times, but that it's a person who makes a practice of, so that, I mean, that makes sense that it would be referring more to a nature of sin nature versus.
Is that Romans 5:12?
Oh, the one I was referring to?
Yeah.
No, it's over in Romans chapter 7. Could you hear what Robin was saying? About,
Kind of.
yeah,
Sorry.
she was just talking about the fact that the word practicing in there, poieo, in the present tense is looking at kind of a constant way of life. And believers sin. We just don't sin as a way of life. That's what she was getting at.
Mm.
And with that, then, so in other words, so I'm trying to think how you put it. The idea then is that believers will even do something from the sin nature, but unsaved people, they practice their sin nature. They do it because they don't have any other nature. You and I have the choice. We can choose to do things that are coming from what we call the new nature, the work of the Spirit in us, or from that part of us that still wants to do these things we used to do. They've only got one choice. They don't have another nature. They have no other alternatives. So that's all they do. And that's really, really important to make a distinction. This is why I think Christians ought to quit raging against the world, because I don't think we should expect them to act any differently. I think it's foolish for us to think so. I was looking for that. Oh, I'm in 1 Corinthians. No wonder. Looking for that verse here in chapter 7. Let's see. Verse 17. Now it is no longer I. This is Romans 7:17. Now it is no longer I that is working it, but the dwelling in me sin. And the definite article in front of the word dwelling in the Greek goes with the word sin. And he goes, for I know that there does not dwell in me, this is in my flesh, any good thing, for to desire is present with me, but to work out the good is not. For that which I do not desire, these to do the good, but that which I do not desire, the evil, this is what I practice. Praso, a different word than poieo. But if that which I desire, if that which I do not desire, this is what I do. No longer am I working it, but the dwelling in me sin. Okay, the Greek text I have here does not ever have.
What verse are you in?
That's verse 20. So he has it in verse 17 and in verse 20. And this particular Greek text never has N attached to the verb dwell. It has the same thing, the dwelling in me. It's exactly the same phrase at the end of verse 17 and the end of verse 20 in the Greek. The dwelling in me sin. But there are some Greek texts in one of those, and I could not tell you which one it is, where they have the preposition also prefixed to the word dwell in one of those two sentences, and I couldn't tell you which one off the top of my head. There's probably a good reason that it should be there, and somebody at some point probably dropped it thinking that it was redundant or that it had been added, was an accident, or they could have done it. They could have dropped it by accident too when they were copying. So, okay, it is 10 o'clock. I think we will call it good. I'm going to make sure I mark this.
Yeah, which one was that?
That was the end of verse 16, because we were talking about the devil. End of verse 16. No, if you ever, if it's, to me, it's an interesting study. If you ever have time, Let's see, today is the 19th. If you ever have time doing something like this, it's an interesting study to look up the word hamartia, go through all the New Testament, and in the singular, well, just look at all the occurrences of them and chart them out. The old school way of doing it is when we did it, we had paper. I've got a professor that I had for Greek, that even with our modern study tools, he still sits down with his clipboard and his concordance, and he takes line paper and he makes the lines and he goes through and classifies and handwrites things down. I've gotten lazy. I type it all out. It's a lot easier to copy it and copy and paste and copy and paste. But to go through and you line them up, and then what you begin to see is you see patterns sometimes when you do things like that. I found sometimes a word study like that is interesting. I've had Bible studies that I've taught that have gone on for 3 or 4 weeks or better, just taking a word and you look at it, and by looking and seeing all the places it's used, everything starts to fit together, and it almost creates an outline for you. It like teaches itself once you get going and understanding it. But all that to say is, if you look at that word sin and you begin to pay attention to places where it has a definite article, I think you're going to see that, all of them. I don't think I found any exceptions. And I did this way back when I was in seminary for an assignment, and I've done it at least once since then, just to go back and check myself. Still always think it references the sin nature.
Now in Romans 7, at the end of 20 and 17, it doesn't have the definite article, right?
It does. There's a definite article occurs both times, but the definite article occurs in front of the word dwell. So it's one of those places where you have the definite article, then you have the word dwell, and then in me sin. So it's the dwelling in me sin is one of the things that you can do in Greek, is you can sandwich a bunch of words between the definite article and the noun or participle that it's modifying or that it's connected to, and you can put other stuff in there to kind of create an idea.
So is oikusa dwell?
Oikusa is dwell, yeah.
Okay.
It's a participle.
Oh, there's a definite article a in front of it. Got it. A.
Yeah, there it is.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Well,
Good.
have a good day. I'm going to say goodbye, and I'm going to go back over and see my grandkids. They're going to take off in about an hour, so I'm going to go over and see them. I haven't seen my granddaughter yet this morning. She was still sleeping when I left. So,
Lucky.
yeah.
All right.
Good to see you, Joe. Are you going to be here Thursday then, or are you working Thursday?
I won't be Thursday. No. So
Okay.
next Tuesday.
Okay. Well, we will make sure we get this up online so that you're able to see the lesson and go over maybe we'll finish these so we can move on to the next lesson. Be next Thursday, I guess it will be. So,
All right.
okay.